Welcome to another episode of Soccerheads New England. We've got all kinds of things going on, most of it by phone today. I'm Dave Rattigan here with Paul Nardizzi and Jim Ruberti. We're your hosts, and we're going to be joined by Thad Bell from the Blue Testament a little bit later on. And I know Jim's got to cut off after a little bit, so we're going to get to Jim first. Jim, I know you had an accident this weekend, and they say that some of the worst accidents happen around the home. And could you share with us?
Absolutely. It was a long night, but I had to get up early. I had an event to go to in the morning. My wife has the toothbrushes and the toothpaste out. I put the toothpaste on my brush, and I begin to brush my teeth. When it all started to go downhill from there, I was like, oh my God, what is this problem with this toothpaste? I looked, it was hydrocortisone cream. You have no idea. I just don't recommend it to anyone listening to put hydrocortisone cream anywhere near their mouth if possible. It took 6 hours to get the taste out of my mouth.
But at least your gums stopped itching.
It was a very overwhelming experience, let's put it that way.
Hey, it could have been worse. It could have been Polident.
Right? Preparation H.
Well, you might go to the dentist and he might say positive things, and you might realize it was because of the hydrocortisone. I wouldn't knock it yet.
That's a good point.
Oh, no, definitely not. But that's how my morning started. It's not a good way to start the day.
The best thing about that story? It didn't happen to me. It didn't happen to me. By the way, I like your phone. By the way, I like the connection. Is that a new Dixie cup? All right, check us out at soccerheadsnewengland.com. We've got a Facebook page or email soccerheadsnewengland@gmail.com. And if you like us, share us. We know there's only one of you, but please share it with as many people as you can. With us is also our engineer, Dale Lawrence, a boxer, cop, and Marine who only recently learned that you can open a book and there were words inside.
Oh, my goodness, Dave.
Later, Jim will have a hot take for us, but first... I'm sorry, not Jim will have a rant for us. But first,
that's all right.
We've got hot takes, and I know you're not here, Jim. You're on the phone, and coming to us from Cape Cod. Paul's on the phone, coming to us from Haverhill, and Dale's here. Dale's going to be filling in, and here we go with hot takes. Cha-cha-cha! Good job. Hot take number one: Seattle won the CONCACAF, becoming the first MLS team to do it. They petitioned MLS to wear something on their shirt to celebrate it. This is fairly common. Mexican teams do it all the time. They have stripes to commemorate titles, little crest for winning CONCACAF. So the MLS said yes for one game. So for one game, they can celebrate one of the biggest achievements in league history, and that seems like a little too understated for me. That would be like if the Statue of Liberty was regular sized, just a regular sized woman. If Jeffrey Epstein's list only had one name, if Wilt Chamberlain, never mind. That's my hot take.
If your act had two funny bits in it instead of one, and basically what you said.
yeah. Kind of waiting for one of you guys to pop in.
Paul, why don't you take that one? I know how I feel, but go ahead.
Well, I'm a big Seattle fan. If it wasn't for the Revs, I'd probably be a Seattle Sounder fan.
Because
this is disgusting, okay? This is the first time a team's done this. We always hear people say, oh, we're not great in soccer, the foreign teams are better. Well, the Seattle beat the foreign team. And then you might say, well, I bet their whole lineup's all foreign players. No, there's actually half the lineup, maybe 6 players are American. So you celebrated for 90 minutes. I think there was a 7-minute extra time. So, wow, 97 minutes. The MLS deserves what it gets reputation-wise. You're not one of the 4 major sports Dave mentions all the time. It's not considered. Well, here you go. You have a chance to capitalize on this thing and market it. I have all the executives' home addresses. My brother's a PI. I'm taking care of my end, but it's disgusting.
Are you going to show up outside their homes as if they were Supreme Court justices?
I don't show up. I mail stuff. I take care of it like that.
Hey, you ready for the second hot take?
Well, what about Jim?
Jim, you got anything?
The only thing I would say is MLS could now stand for minor league soccer. It's embarrassing. I agree with Paul. What a thing to happen for the league. They should be proud of it. They should have something to show every other team in MLS. If you win this, you get this as well. It's just, it's sad.
I love this idea that so Seattle's going to have like a little something on their shirt and all the other teams are going to be like, oh, we should win CONCACAF. I didn't know. If I knew we were going to get that, we would have won CONCACAF. I actually agree with both you guys. Sorry. I wish I didn't. I wish I didn't, but yeah, this is just weird. Let's get to hot take number 2. You ready to go, Dale?
Cha-cha-cha.
Hot take number 2 from the New England. This is from the New England Soccer Journal, our friends over there. I read this story. Goalkeeper Nate Silvera of East Providence, Rhode Island, had an additional year of eligibility with the University of Vermont soccer team, so he's coming back, play another season. Decided to take an extra year, and according to the story, he decided to pick up a second degree. So if all goes according to plan, he'll be graduated next spring with a bachelor's degree in psychological science and sociology with a concentration in criminal justice. Pretty impressive. And more important to UVM soccer fans, Silvera is the returning America East Goalkeeper of the Year. Last season, as you know, the Catamounts finished second to UNH for the America East title and then upset the Wildcats in the league championship tournament. I think what's going on right now, and this maybe this would have happened anyway with this kid, but with this strange pandemic year behind them for a lot of kids who are student athletes, or a lot of student athletes, college adults, they may take that lost time and parlay it into another year of competition. I know some student athletes in spring sports at UMass Lowell who've told me that they'd take advantage of UMass Lowell offers a 5-year bachelor's master's business program, and know a lot of college students who were knocked off track by this strange couple of years of the pandemic. Obviously, a lot of students, the 4-year degree, a lot of students achieve it in 5 years. And I also know that when Jim Ruberti played, the coach actually begged him to graduate rather than to take that last year.
Far off.
But my advice, stay in school forever, because the real world is cold, cruel, mean, and full of things like tubes of stuff in your bathroom that you really shouldn't put in your mouth.
You know, I must say, though, Dave, it is not just soccer. It's football. It's college basketball seems to be taking the biggest advantage of this extra year and calling it the COVID year.
Yeah.
And if you look, some of these teams are actually getting players who are at another college have transferred.
Yeah, it was a good year to transfer. Year. Yeah.
It was a great year to transfer. You're seeing athletes that had 4 incredible years at Duke, North Carolina, Virginia in basketball, and they're going to smaller schools to play their extra year. Very interesting time.
I'm not buying this story at all, Dave. I mean, I went to school for 4 years. By the end of year 1, I was ready to jump off a bridge or self-poison myself by sucking face with a guy with Bengay in his teeth. This kid was clearly coerced. Either someone on the coaching staff, beat this kid, and then they brainwashed him so he'd forget the whole thing. Anyone who's been to college for 4 years knows they've drank at every corner of the campus. They've chased every girl. They're sick of school. He's proved himself in soccer. So when November arrives and he's staring at the same 7 trees up in the woods in Vermont, it's gonna dawn on him that he was tricked. And luckily, he has that concentration in psychology and justice. He can start working on his case and find out who beat him to a pulp and made him make this sorry-ass decision.
Wow, I got Paul going on that one. No different than a red shirt year.
That comes in the beginning, though. This is coming at the end. He's done.
No, red shirt year. You can be red shirt with a freshman, and it allows you to take an extra year, so you can actually be doing it for 5 years.
Right, but as a freshman, you don't know any better.
But what's wrong with having a 30-year-old goaltender, Paul?
The coach did a great job. I mean, you got a good goalie, beat him to a pulp, and keep him there. I don't care.
Yeah, and maybe he's still got some freshman girls he's interested in. At the school.
Maybe he likes school. Maybe he's trying to better himself by going for another year, getting a second major. Maybe he's a great student.
Yeah, keep believing that.
I have a very good friend who's a local veterinarian who played soccer for UVM, and he did it while he had dyslexia. So I used to always ask him, "So did you call yourself a mountain cat?"
I'm sure he appreciated that line. You know, the funny thing is what a foreign idea that it would be. How quickly, when I suggested that this kid do something to better himself, how quickly you were to discount the idea that someone would be in college to learn.
You left out the important fact that UNH went way further than them in the NCAA tournament. Who cares about the stupid conference tournament?
Well, I wasn't the conference tournament. Was it that after the NCAAs? Or was it?
No, the conference tournament is leading into the NCAA.
All right. Yeah, so UNH had a great year, but they beat them for the conference championship. And when you don't win the regular season championship, it's still a pretty good thing to do, to win.
Yeah, he's a goalie, so I guess I shouldn't doubt that he would make a dumb move and go back to school.
All right, I'm going to plug a couple of these sponsors. Then we're going to get to Jim's rant of the week. We want to plug our sponsors. Monster Soccer, founded by Paul Nardizzi, currently run by Bryce Nardizzi. The camp will train your soccer player to be better using new techniques, not the ones that Paul used. In fact, no longer does the coach follow you around with a yardstick as you're doing your laps, just in case you can't outrun his bicycle.
How do you know all this?
Bryce has told me. The number is 508-308-4109. Soccerheads New England is also sponsored by our good friend, financial advisor Rick Spencer, 978-857-7573. Rick will help get your kid into college, athlete, and he runs seminars. He's also my financial advisor, and until I met him, I never thought I could afford a solid gold, diamond-encrusted nose ring, and now I can. Rick Spencer, 978-857-7573. And finally, here's a new idea in fundraising: a Soccerheads Comedy Night. Call me, Dave, at scampscomedy.com, and we'll hook you up, and it'll be great. Now, we're going to talk about Jim and his rant. Jim, what do you got for us this week?
All right, this week I know Paul's going to cringe, but we need more international women's soccer on TV. Absolutely 100%. I watched the UEFA Women's Championship quarterfinals, the semifinals. Not only was the soccer entertaining, the women were overwhelmingly beautiful in those cases, like the Finland-Sweden game. Let me tell you, Paul. Now, when it came to the, German-Netherlands game, that didn't go down a few notches on the looks-wise, but the soccer was absolutely entertaining. For the entertainment value for 90 minutes, we need to see more. I want to see Iceland play Sweden, Finland play Iceland. Audiences would go crazy for it here in the United States. These women are playing at 110%. They're going at it, and the best part is after they score. And I'll leave that up to your imagination. But that's my rant.
Is that your rant?
That's my rant. We need more international women's soccer games on TV for us to watch. There should also be some sports calendars that should be available. There should be more personal interviews. There should be swimsuit editions. There should be... The marketing is endless. But I'm telling you, at the end of the day, the soccer is also entertaining.
Are you gonna start protesting this stuff?
I am. I'm going to take my shirt off at one of these games, and I'm going to demand that the teams do as well to join me in this protest.
I tried to watch, Jim, and I agree with you. It's good soccer.
I'm telling you, Paul, it's not. It's not bad. Is it?
No, it's good.
I mean, is the ball in the air a lot? Are they faster? Certainly not. But tactical-wise, talent-wise, and effort-wise, I was honestly surprised to see the effort. And these women kick the crap out of each other in these games sometimes. I enjoy it. I could use less tattoos, to be honest with you. Not my kind of thing. But, it didn't affect the game.
No, my only issue with it, Jim, the Olympics come around. I watch all the Olympics because I don't get to see those sports a lot. So it's fencing, female or male, I watch it. But I already have enough soccer. It's like saying, why don't you watch the WNBA? Because I have the NBA. I don't need the women's soccer. I have plenty of soccer.
Here's a tidbit why I don't watch the WNBA. They all cry that everything needs to be equal and their sport is just as good. Do you know that the WNBA basketball is smaller than the NBA basketball?
I did not know that.
Just that fact alone makes me not watch the WNBA. And I know that the women's soccer ball is the same size as the men's soccer ball.
Huh.
They play on a pitch. They all wear the same clothes. Like you, they wear the same underwear. I'm just saying it's a very enjoyable sport to watch. I think it would catch on. I think U.S. women's international soccer would be even bigger if they played more international games.
Yeah.
And it was on and women's soccer, international, I'm talking, Paul. I'm not talking like a professional women's soccer league here in the United States. I'm talking the international games. If there was somehow the U.S. women could get on a circuit and play Iceland and Ireland and England and Germany in a consistent, not necessarily a World Cup way, or maybe they could get the league out there. I don't know. But I really enjoyed it.
So you want them to schedule more games against countries with beautiful women, is what you're saying?
Well, hey, look, if that happens, Paul, I'll certainly not that. I'll have to order more tube socks, but that's a whole different thing. But no, I think you should absolutely have European friendlies with these, and I think it would catch on. That's my rant, Dave.
That's a
Over
good.
international women's soccer, I think it would garner a huge audience.
There we
You
go.
in the United States.
That's your rant, Jim, and I got to just say two things. I want to congratulate you, or just one thing, really. Congratulate you. Welcome to the 20th century. It's the rare person who can both be progressive and sexist in the same thought, and you've achieved it. And as for Paul, who says counters with, we've already got enough soccer for me because I can watch enough men's soccer. I don't need women's soccer. We can only say, Paul, sometimes it's not about you. All right, we're going to move on. Jim, thanks very much. And I know you got to get off. You got to get off because of that quote unquote work thing that we think probably involves fishing. But thanks for joining us. We'll see you. We'll see you next week. Now our guest, welcome Thad Bell from the Blue Testament, which is part website, part podcast. Thad, you got to explain to me exactly. I mean, I looked at it, and it's part podcast, or half of the content's podcast, half of the podcast seems to be stories. Do you do podcasts that are then written up as stories, or are they stories that are converted to podcasts? How would you describe the Blue Testament?
It's a soccer site for people in Kansas City that's interested in soccer in Kansas City. We do straight up articles. We do opinion things that are sometimes stupid, sometimes accurate. We actually have multiple podcasts that all kind of call ourselves home. We have one called The Shades of Blue because it used to be every soccer team in Kansas City wore some form of blue. Mm-hmm. So we kind of went with that. We've had some regulars on there, and we have guests from sporting on there. We're trying to get someone from the KC Current, the NWSL team, more regularly. We have one pod that's just for the KC Current that one of our writers does with somebody else. We have another writer who does another pod that's pretty much only sporting Kansas City with another person. So we have all those, but we also cover pretty much anything we want to that is in the Kansas City region, including from sporting to the NWSL to indoor soccer with the Kansas City Comets, and whenever we can cover something else, college or whatever we feel like.
Okay. And you're the manager, and you have 3 editors, 3 staff writers, 2 contributing authors, I think.
And there's probably a couple more that's not on the masthead, so just because I've been lazy and not gotten them in there. So
okay, can anybody who can craft a sentence, any fan, write for it?
Pretty much. I mean, we'll start people off with like fan posts and promote them up to the front page if they're worth reading. And I'm not the best writer in the world, but we'll try to make sure people have at least and put 2 sentences together with some proper punctuation once in a while. Fans have good opinions, man, so people need to be heard. But we're pretty proud of our community, man. Like our regular commenters mostly don't get into shit with each other, but they mostly don't give each other a hard time. I mean, they'll argue a little bit, but it's pretty congenial for the most part.
I'm not going to say which president it was. As you might recall, the Kansas City Chiefs a while ago won the Super Bowl, and he complimented them and said the people of Kansas are going to be so proud. Obviously, you've got Kansas City is like a weird thing because 2 separate Kansas cities that abut each other, of one on the border of Missouri, one on the border of Kansas. Why put another Kansas in Missouri?
Actually, we were in Kansas City before Kansas was Kansas. If I remember correctly, but I'm not that old, but I do remember reading that at one point. I'm originally not even from Kansas City, man. So I moved here. It was confusing as hell, man, because Kansas City, Missouri, the numbered streets go east-west. In Kansas City, Kansas, the streets go north-south. So it's like, what the hell?
And it's two separate city governments. But it's one fan base, right? I mean,
and it goes all the way down to Arkansas and all the way to the border of Colorado. But I mean, we actually have a writer that lives in Denver. I mean, he lives right there with the Colorado Rapids, and obviously he's a smart guy because he can't stand them, so he lives in Kansas City. And up into Iowa, I mean, St. Louis, into Illinois. We have fans pretty all around there. But as the list grows, man, it's going to shrink a little bit, but that's okay.
One similarity with New England is, well, I don't know. It's a similarity in the fact that we both got, I assume that Kansas City, because of the Chiefs, is crazy for football right now. Is that true, American football? So we've got, as you probably know, a pretty successful team here in New England, not in the recent years, but overall. And they fill
model of consistency, you guys were.
Yes. But the Patriots fill a 68,750 seat stadium. And we also have a very good soccer team that draws 20,000 in the same stadium. The football team is arguably the most popular of the sports teams, professional sports teams in the region, and the soccer team is regularly left out of the sports conversation about, quote, there are people who say the four major sports teams, and soccer is not one of the major sports. What's the soccer scene like in Kansas City?
I mean, I'll say, sadly, Sporting is probably third on the pecking order behind the Chiefs and the Royals. The Royals, they pretty much are good once every 2 decades or so. They get good for like 2 years and then they go away and they're really not a subject. But, you draw 17,000 fans, 80 games a year. That's still not terrible, right? And actually, like I've went to many games there where the opposing fans were larger than the Royals fans just because people wanted to go see their team. Anyway, it's still a trench, but it's an older crowd where soccer is a much younger crowd and continues to grow. And, I think Chiefs are going to be number one for quite a while. That's just the way it is. Soccer continues to grow, but right now, Sporting table-wise sucks. We know that right now. They're just at the bottom of the table. They're struggling. They can play well for a half and then not. So it's just how it is. But they've won 4 trophies under Vermees, a cup, MLS Cup, and 3 Open Cups. We also have the KC Current, the NWSL team that's building their own soccer stadium.
Yeah.
So we will have 2 soccer-specific stadiums in this town. They'll be technically in 2 different states. They'll be technically in 2 different Kansas cities. They'll be about 15 minutes apart. So they've built their own training ground. They built their own stadium. They're not going to be the size of Sporting Kansas City. Sporting Kansas City's training center is like 75 million. Current's training center is 18 million. Still a very nice training center. Not quite as big, not quite as fancy, but very nice. They're building a stadium that will be, I think it's going to be like 75 million all privately funded, and now it's going to be like 120 million with some public funding in it. But it'll see 12,000, 11,500, 12,000. So that's 2 soccer-specific stadiums. So, the indoor team continues to grow again. There's, we have the 2 team that plays here, which doesn't get much attendance, but they almost have enforced that over the last couple of years. That's all pretty good. We have a pretty active grassroots soccer, so teams playing in the 3rd and 4th division. We have, those teams, can't even keep count of them right now. There's, I think, 3 teams that would play in what you would consider the 4th division, 3 men's teams, and then 3 or 4 women's teams that play what you would consider the 2nd or 3rd or 4th division of women's soccer. So it's pretty active.
Great. Paul, questions?
Well, Thad, what Dave didn't mention is, so when the Revs play, it looks pretty empty at Gillette. And when the Patriots play, it's full, but it's actually close to the same amount of people. It's just that football fans are way fatter. That's why they fill it up. We actually keep ourselves in shape. And you're a soccer player, right, Dad? We keep ourselves in shape.
Well, I am a 56 or 7, whatever it is, I lose count, old fat guy who used to play soccer. So, there was a time my playing weight was like 160, and now it's way, way over that. So I resemble more the NFL fan now. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. So when I went to the Revs game when we played you guys. I was walking into your stadium, which was, to me, the coolest thing ever. I was arguing with Dave that we need something like that out here.
Yeah.
And I was just admiring it, enjoying the stepping in, being with these fans, that I literally walked right in without showing my ticket. I guess I looked like I belonged. You know, that you kind of act like you're something. They don't even question, why are you not showing your ticket? 20 feet past the gate, and I hear my son yelling to me. I turn around, I'm like, what do you want? He's looking at me with his phone. He goes, I haven't even checked you in yet.
Maybe they looked at you and thought they didn't want to deal with you. Maybe they thought it was better to pass you on.
I feel like it's just that laid-back Midwestern thing. If you did that out here, tried to sneak and just walk right in, the next time you came back, you'd have a handicapped license plate. They would beat the crap out of you. So my question is that laid-back thing why your team's struggling right now? Maybe Vermees is not getting to the players anymore.
I'm not sure how we make that connection. But
I was going to say, that was quite a connection. So
I'm not sure the ticket takers making minimum wage is kind of in the same level of the guys trying to take the ball in the goal. But
no, I just mean the Midwestern attitude. So Vermees has kind of lost the they say you tune a coach out after a number of years. Have they tuned him out?
Looking at it that way, that is a valid question. That's actually something I have wondered over time is that I always feel that, I don't say always feel, but I always wonder, because like certain coaches will wear themselves out and you have to like refresh the crowd, or you have to refresh the coach. That does happen in every sport. If they're there for, sometimes it's 3 years, sometimes it's 8 years, but at some point the same message, you're saying the same message and it's not getting heard the same way. And I do worry about that a little bit sometimes. But there's been a fair amount of newer guys and then, young guys coming up through the academy and stuff like that. But I do think there's a little bit of wariness with the repetitive of the message. Actually, maybe more so with the fans than the players.
That's interesting. Your mascot is Blue the dog. Is that right? Blue the dog is the mascot?
Okay, my first personal opinion is mascots are stupid. They suck, and they could all pretty much go away.
Very defensive over the. All right, go ahead. But is that the name of
If you're looking for me to defend Blue the dog, the mascot, he's like one of the least offensive mascots there are, but it's just as bland as can be. And I mean, that was like, there was no creative license taken with that concept, was there?
We got to say we've had this heat wave the last few days, and I thought that'd be the worst job in the world would be during a heat wave was to be a mascot.
I'm not even sure we have one.
Yeah,
do we?
Yeah, trying to think. I'm pretty sure we do. I went there once, and they had all the Boston team mascots, including some that I wasn't even aware of, were walking around. It was one of those kids' nights. Yeah, it was just, again, it's cool for the kids, but I don't know.
Everybody has their opinion on it, though. There's the indoor team and the previous women's team in the NWSL, I think, had a mascot game. Actually, maybe it was the Wizards would have mascot soccer games. And I was like, oh, this is just stupid. And and I'm a photographer, so a lot of times I'm shooting the game, right? And we'll have somebody else writing. But so anyway, I'm like, yeah, I'll take some pictures of the mascot game and stuff. And I post like one picture, and people are like, hey, you got more? I'm like, why? Literally, if I post mascot game pictures on my Instagram, it will get more hits than, some guy scoring a goal. So I don't get it. There's a lot of things in this life I don't get.
I post Instagram videos for my stand-up, and I'm excited if I once in a while post one and it gets, say, 7,000 or 8,000 views. My son goes to the driving range the other day, and he hits his ball off the metal cage, and it ricochets over his shoulder and hits his brother in the left nipple, and he sent it to some golf site that posts memes, Golf I King or something it's called, and he's already up to 140,000 views in 24 hours. I kid you not.
You just need to, injure your nipple, and you'll probably get better reviews.
It's depressing.
Here's another thing about Kansas that I found is, and I would have not known this except for the Blue Testament, that Kansas is the sunflower state. Massachusetts is the Bay State. Who cares? Or am I being too critical of people from the Bay State and people from the sunflower state?
I don't really care which ones they are either, man. I mean, I went and took pictures of sunflowers at sunset, and they're pretty, but, I really don't care after that.
With no disrespect to Sunflower FC? Is that the name of the team that I just recently saw a podcast about?
Yeah, Sunflower State FC. They're good guys.
Yeah, and
they're one of those lower level division teams that have a men's team and a women's team, and they're just about giving kids young people chances to play and grow and move on.
Yeah, so it's a good thing that I've just made. I don't even know if it's a mean joke, just a mean statement about sunflower, and it turns out that it's connected to a league that's trying to help kids develop into better people. Is that what you're saying?
The club, Sunflower State FC, and some of their associated clubs that they work with. There's ones that have a club that's basically all immigrants, and they're trying to get them places to play. There's one that was basically started by a Kansas City police officer who basically just wanted to help youth that didn't have opportunities to play sports and stuff like that. So they do a lot of work with those teams, and that's just really cool function. Whether you like the fact they call it Sunflower State, I don't give a shit.
All right, let's get to the other thing, which is the Blue Testament and your audience of readers and listeners. Are you guys a big fish in a small pond, would you call it, or you call yourself a small fish in a big pond, or is there a better analogy for for the Blue Testament?
I don't know if there's a good analogy for us, to be honest. Like the Kansas City Star is like they get to break all the news because the teams want to feed them stuff because they still have a bigger audience. But we get to say what we want. Sometimes we tick off the teams a little bit, but mostly they all work really well with us. Yeah, I mean, there's just not a lot of, and this is a little bit of my political maneuvering a little bit, because I used to have a blog that are different blog. One of our writers used to have a blog completely separate. 2 or 3 of our writers came from kind of a rival site. The different pods all came from different places. And I'm like, let's just bring us all together. We kind of work together, and it just works that way. So I've kind of basically brought us up to the second site in Kansas City to get any soccer news, and actually the best site in Kansas City to get any soccer news. But the Kansas City Star is still the big name.
Do you have press passes for your games and all that?
I mean, we're treated as real media.
Okay.
Whether we actually are real media, that's another question.
When I listened to it, I think they're well informed, but I wasn't really telling whether or not. So you go to games, you have the press passes, you get them mad at you when you say things they don't like. It's not just all fans with their opinions and all that. But you do have that component of fans can weigh in. I
enjoy having commenters, have different opinions. And as long as they are reasonably civil to each other, we let it go.
Yeah.
I think we've banned 2 people over the last 4 years.
What did you ban people for?
Just personal attacks. Just got too personal. And actually, one person we banned for 4 weeks and told them to just calm down and come back, and they didn't. Or at least if they did, it came under another name. They behaved. I don't care.
We have bans and stand-ups, but they don't last 4 weeks. Once you're out of a club, you're not coming back. That's pretty much it. Yeah. By the way, Thad, based on my experience, you can throw that press pass in the trash. You just walk right into the stadium. You don't need that thing.
Well, you might get away with walking into the stadium once in a while, but you're not getting into the press box or on the field where I'm shooting at. So that's another whole story.
I think you should try getting onto the field. Well, see, you'll be able to get on because you don't need a press pass. At a certain point, they're going to recognize you. You should try that. Just try to find somebody like Paul, somebody who looks unapproachable. Send him into the stadium. Send him down with a camera down to the field. Give him one of those long lenses that all photographers are jealous of, and see if anybody stops them. I think it'd be a good story.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of them that would recognize me, but I go through the security every time. You have to go through a certain amount of security just to get in the stadium when you come in through the press area. So
this is a little far afield, but when you come in with your camera equipment, how thoroughly do they check you?
Pretty thoroughly most of the time.
And they're obviously they're not expecting you of anything horrible, but they're probably just being vigilant.
I mean, there's a couple of them that know me really well that will open the bag and give it a look and not dig in into too much, and that's fine. And every once in a while, one that doesn't know me that well that will dig a little harder. But it's I'm former military, so I'm pretty good with security, man. I'm like, if they want to do it, they do it.
Anyway, Paul, you got another one?
Yeah, so Thad, the upcoming game against, I don't know who you're playing, but it's that Open Cup semifinal.
Sacramento Republic.
You should win. Fingers crossed on that. Anyways, the Revs bowed out of CONCACAF, in my opinion, because the roster just wasn't right to play the quicker Mexican teams. Do you think if they get to the CONCACAF in the fall, do you think KC needs a big roster overhaul with some new players, or do you think what they have, they can at least compete in that?
They need to improve if they want to do any good in CONCACAF Champions League. And we have that problem with 2 DPs that are out. We're basically out for the season. One's completely out for the season. One is there's still the tiniest sliver of possibility they would play. Where we're at in the table is probably not worth risking them. If they win the Open Cup, they have a roster that could compete with at least some of the Champions League teams. So
Polito's out. Who's the other one?
Kenda.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Gotti Kenda. Polito is actually not out for the year, even though he's been said he's out for the year. He's not officially out for the year. So they never put him on the season in the injury list. And I've heard him tell people that he planned on playing. He's a workout.
So, I mean, you hate to make excuses, but you're in the bottom of the table. But that's 2 huge players you're missing.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll be realistic, right? If both of them were playing, I don't think we'd be competing for first this year. There's just so much good quality out there. But they would be at least mid-playoff team. One of them was there. I think we would be in the playoff zone. It's just that cutting edge level where they aren't good enough to overcome that adversity. You know what I mean? There were other teams, maybe they have enough depth that they overcome it. And even like the beginning of this year, they were like, well, Gotti Kenda is going to come back. He's going to start training like right at the beginning of the year. He should be back about a month into the team. About a month into the season. And they were really looking at that as, okay, we know we're going to struggle until he comes back. But then at one point they discovered that the injury was needed for in-depth surgery. So yeah, he was out for the year. And then they tried to struggle to find guys right at that last, bit of the window. and they really couldn't find people who could come in at that point. The one that got in this window, he just played his first game the other night and looked really good. I mean, it's his first game, 60 minutes. A lot of players look good in their first game with the team, so we'll see.
Thad, thanks very much. We want to plug you up the Blue Testament at thebluetestament.com. Great soccer talk and a lot of great information. Well-written site and just a lot of information on that site. Thanks very much.
And we welcome anybody to come on and talk as long as you come on and talk.
Yep, nobody rude.
Just don't get too personal. That's fine.
Gotcha.
We're not that big. We're not that like thin skin. It's just I'm trying to keep people. I want to keep people coming back and not feel it's too toxic.
Excellent. Thanks very much. That's it for this episode of Soccerheads New England. We'll be back next week. We'd like to thank our sponsors, financial advisor Rick Spencer. Call him at 978-857-7573. And you too will live like Jim Ruberti, who sleeps on virgin wool from sheep that have never even had a date. Don't forget, for fundraising, the Soccerhead Comedy Experience. Email Dave at scampscomedy.com for that. Monster Soccer, 508-308-4109. And for Paul Nardizzi, Jim Ruberti, Dave Rattigan, engineer Dale Lawrence, and our very special guest, Thad Bell. This has been Soccerheads New England.